our daily bread, and lead us in our debts, as we also forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory, forever. Amen.
Mm-hmm.
More people join us online.
Oh, there are.
No,
it's just Darren.
One more people.
Yeah.
Is Darren still there?
I don't know. Is Darren still around?
Yeah.
Darren, are you still with
Yep,
us?
I'm still here. I'll just mute so I don't make any background noise.
Okay. Is anyone else with you?
Renee and Xavier are here. So.
Okay.
But they're just in the bathroom. They'll be here any moment.
Okay. So where we're up to is page 20. And we're starting the new section, which is our nature after death depends on the kind of life we led in the world. So I don't know if there's anybody that wants to read from that section. Is anybody wanting to read? Yeah.
Any Christian knows from the word that our life is still with us after death, since it says in many places that we will be judged according to our deeds and works and rewarded accordingly. Further, anyone who thinks on the basis of what is good and from real truth cannot help but see the people who live well enter heaven and people who live evil lives enter hell. However, people who are intent on evil do not want to believe that their state after death depends on their life in the world. They think rather, especially when their health begins to fail, that heaven is granted to all on the basis of mercy alone, no matter how people lived, and that this depends on a faith that they keep separate from life. It does say in many places in the Word that we will be judged and requited according to our deeds and works. I should like to cite a few passages here. I will give to all according to their works, Revelation 2:23. I saw the dead, small and great, standing in the presence of God, and books were opened, and the dead were judged according to what was written in the books. According to their works, the sea gave up those who had died in it, and death and hell gave up the people who were in them, and they were all judged according to their works. Revelation 20:13. Everyone who hears my words and does them, I will compare to a prudent person. But everyone who hears my words and does not do them is like a foolish person. Jehovah deals with us according to our ways and according to our works. Zechariah 1:6.
So is there anything that's coming up for people?
I couldn't help thinking when you read that, Chris, I saw the dead, small and great, standing in the presence of God, and books were opened. It just occurred to me, it really is your heart that's opened, isn't it? It must be your heart that's opened. You know, to really see what is in another person's heart, or even to see what's in your own heart. That, to me, it just struck me that this book, according to what's written in the books, that's almost poetic, because it's really what's in our heart that's going to be the all-determining factor. I just wanted to make that comment, Jane.
Well, my mum and I were talking last night. Recently, my uncle passed. I didn't really know him very well. And he had dementia, but for 6 weeks he didn't eat or drink. And look, I don't mean to speak badly of him, but he was quite dishonest in his life here. He did some embezzlement, and his death dragged on so long, and he was so rigid. And also, I've got a bit of a theory that I've worked in healthcare. I've seen quite a few people move across, and they'll either go peacefully or they'll hold on. And I'm finding that, because my grandmother, she wasn't a very nice person either. Her death was the same. It was like they're holding on so much. It's like they're holding their muscles like this, and they don't want to let go, because I think because they feel guilty about what they've done here. I don't know, I could be wrong. But then I've seen other people just slip away so peacefully. And I think if you don't believe in anything and you haven't listened to the word, what he says here, I think you're going to have I could be wrong, but I think your time of passing isn't going to be quite easy. It's just something I've noticed. Jane's father, he passed quite.
He did, because he had dementia. My mum wasn't talking about him dying because she was protecting him. But it played, and so I had a talk to my mum when I went into the hospital and said, he knows he's dying, but he may not know that we know that he's dying. And so you have to actually tell him that it's okay to go, because he heard my mum's voice. He had stopped breathing and heard my mum's voice, because we were out of the room, they were changing him, and they called us, and he heard her voice and then started breathing again. And it was like, no, you got to tell him that it's okay, that because he was, there was that fighting, I think, but not for himself,
It's
for her.
So I think there's definitely he lived his life very righteous. He was a good father, amazing husband, everything. And he was a believer also. And I just wonder about people in my life. Well, I worry about people in my life that don't believe. They're going to go through that sort of, it's supposed to be a peaceful thing, but I think because we haven't listened to the word, we haven't acknowledged the word, that it's going to make the transition a lot harder. It's just something I've noticed.
Yeah. Well, if you believe that this is your only chance, and this is it, and then you cease to exist, then you're going to be trying to hold on pretty tight, because
and also all
you
of a
no
sudden,
longer exist.
if you think you're going to be judged for all the things you've done, you'll go, I don't want to go there now. It's like going up to the headmaster's office for fooling around in the class. You'll go up to the headmaster. The whole way to the headmaster, you're going to be going, oh no, I've got to face the headmaster.
It's probably more your parents when you get home.
So anyway, I just wanted to say that, because I realised, because Mum said Barry, my uncle, his death wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. It was very tense and it wasn't peaceful. And then,
Do you think it's possible, Chris, that when people, as you're saying, are struggling and seem to be resisting, do you think it's possible the Lord is using their fear, if it's fear, to give account of themselves even beforehand? It's just occurred to me that that's also possible, that we've got to be confronted with it sometime. And it strikes me that it's possible that in the face of death. Because my experience as well is that most people know they're dying. And so, to realise that this time has come, and you look at your life and can be not just struggling with the imminence of death, but struggling with regret, shame, a dozen other things, but better to do it now than afterwards. That could be going on as well.
Absolutely.
I think people are definitely, like, some people are holding on because they want to make sure that their loved ones or who needs to have been to see them has had a chance to do that.
Yes.
That there's a proper goodbye or a closure there.
Yes.
There's another reason I think too is that sometimes people will create or generate drama in their life because they're not ready to confront their own inner demons.
Right.
And yet death, as you say, Ian, it starts the awakening process where we can no longer dampen those inner thoughts and feelings. And I've heard so many near-death experiences where people meet Jesus and then the person interviewing them says, how did you know it was Jesus? And they go, you just know. You know. And it's that inner knowing, I think, that people sometimes are not ready for. Some people are like, I want to deal with this, but I'm just not dealing with it today. And they just keep pushing it away. And so then death comes and they're struggling because it's like, no, I'm not ready yet. I've got all these things I want to deal with that I've not yet dealt with.
Yeah, and hit on a little bit of both of those things, what you said, Ian, and what you're saying, Darren. I sort of see it again as like saying, when the suffering gets bad enough and fearful enough, there's a collapse that happens. And the collapsing of who we think we are in this ego, or who we are as this physical person, then collapse back down and has connection with that true, which is God.
Yeah.
And then you collapse into the love. So from the fear and from the struggle, there is that collapse that then happens. It's in that surrender. It's in that humility. And I believe, sometimes we can get there many times in our life before we pass over. But again, all different intensities and different depths. Hence why I think that, again, it's when we let go, like you're saying, rather than holding on, again over there, what you were saying, for people that hold on, I don't think there's essentially anything wrong with that. It's just that where that person's up to, eventually they will let go. Even people who don't believe. When the time gets bad enough for them, who do they call out to? God help me. God help me. And there's a collapse that happens. And in that collapse is where that true love, I think, prevails.
I agree with basically what you just said.
Yeah.
Sorry, Darren. But I
No,
just wrote down in my notes, when you're in your ego, in your head,
Yes.
which is when you're holding on, you're in your fears.
Yes.
And
Yes.
but when you're in your heart, you're in your soul, and that's the soul connection with love. Love is all prevailing.
Yes.
And I think, I just
Beautiful.
actually wrote that down just before you spoke. So, but can I say a couple more things, Darren? Is that okay?
Oh, go. No, I'll wait. Yes. Happy to wait.
Three things actually. I feel the the thing is this ego and heart, going back to what you said, Ian, that connection, and it's the intentions, I feel, that are not, so it's not, again, going back to what you said, Ian, about your heart, it's not like even what we did or said, it's heavy the intentions, those, it's deeper than what we thought, it's the actual underlying, was it in truth, was it in love, was it in healing. I do believe And I take solace from a book called Mary Neal, which I think I've mentioned to you, Jane, at least, and to Darren. This lovely lady actually did clinically die for 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. And she wasn't a strong believer at the time of the death, but she did come back. She's written 2 books. She's an amazing lady. She's a surgeon, for a spinal surgeon. And she was canoeing and got literally stuck under the water.
Yes.
Yeah, Mary Neal.
Amazing. She's amazing. Yep.
Yes. And I feel her story, as well as others who've actually experienced death, so not just near-death experiences, but they actually have clinically, shouldn't be back here, have, they have that, when you do the review, I'm shying away from the word judge.
Yes.
When you do the
Yeah.
review, it's done in love. Yes. So it doesn't
Always.
matter how or who you were, what you did, even if you're a murderer or whatever. I do know that God is love. That's as the
Yes.
bottom. Yes. And I feel like this is where to get away from this heavy cord with judgment. And I think there's 2 other points I had in my head. One is what you were saying, Sharon, was, like there is a verse in the Bible, you can help me out here, that we take up our cross and we die daily. Isn't there something about daily? Yeah, die daily. That's what I also had in my head, that this whole process isn't just the end. It is something on a daily basis, that what are we dying to in our ego to allow the love to come through.
Yes.
But my question that I had to both Ian and Darren, what is the language origin of the word judge in the Bible? Like, when you're saying Revelations there, judge accordingly. So what is that? Can you explain what is? Does it actually mean like we're weighing up, or like we come in with our concept of judge and judgment from our English, definition. So I'm just wondering, what is the Arabic, or what is the Hebrew, and what is the?
Darren, I think it's separation, right?
Yeah.
Darren?
Yes, I'm trying to remember. Yeah, no, I'm trying to remember, Ian, the word.
I think it's separation. I think that
It is. It is.
that is at the core of what is involved in the word that's translated as judge.
Well, that means a lot to me. Yes.
Yeah.
That means that.
But pretty sure that's right, Darren.
Well, in the spiritual sense, it just means to discern between what is the right way and the wrong way.
Yes.
So so a couple of things I'd like to sort of say is, firstly, I think, Sharon, what you said, what everyone said is so beautiful. Sharon, what you were saying for me was you were describing the fear of death and how we actually lose that fear of death. And then you started sort of touching on that too, I think, Jennifer, that because the scripture that was coming to my mind was, in perfect love, it casts out all fear. But we're not yet quite in that love, and so we're afraid and we struggle. But then if we do the daily work that you were talking about, Jennifer, if we do that daily dying, then we should be well and truly ready for crossing over long before we even cross over.
Yes.
Because we're no longer afraid of death, we welcome it. But nearly every single person who's had a death experience and come back, when they're asked, they say, I have no fear of death anymore. They don't. They've lost that fear of death. And I think it is scary to let go of your sense of who you think you are, but when you've done it and you realize how liberating it is, then there's nothing to fear anymore.
Also, Darren, with the near-death experience, the people who have reported life review, as far as I've read near-death experiences, they haven't reported it as being a scary thing.
No.
Yeah, that's done in love.
It's done, because it's done in love. They haven't felt shamed or
Yeah, that's
that's. I remember talking to a young surfer in Lismore many years ago, only about 20 or 21, and he'd been knocked out on his surfboard and dragged out of the water and dead, in inverted commas. And he was talking about that life review, as I remember, and he was clearly not talking about any shame or anything like that. It was a much more agreeable and natural thing for him, not as scary.
and that's
I think shame, yeah, I think shame carries an idea of failure as well.
Well,
And
it
so
does.
from what from what Swedenborg tells us and from what these death experiences tell us, we become the judge because we now have the light to look at our own life and review it. And that's the whole purpose of it. It's not that we are being judgmental, but we're learning to judge what were the right choices I made, what were the wrong ones, and it's all about the growth and the learning. And I think the only reason it's ever a fearful experience is because we run from that instead of running to that experience.
Well, there can be other reasons. So I think there's so many layers to it, and I think we have the unknown, and many people are fearful or concerned about the unknown. So and
Yes.
so it's but what I think is really, I love, that came quite, even when it came in the second sentence or second line about judge, I was wondering, what does that word really mean? Because what I'm learning to understand is that we are not separate from God. We are not, God is, we wouldn't be here without the breath
No.
of the life force. But yet
No.
we are so put up in our ego and so put up in our heads that we feel this
Right.
separation. And we fear that separation, when we can't hold on to a body.
Yes.
So I think, that crossing over can even be even more, horrifying, because we've got nothing left in our ego and, so I just find it more beautiful to understand that the word judge is not what decades of centuries of Christian churches have indoctrinated with their dogma of that view of hell. Yes, and their condemnation and the damnation and the eternal brimstone and fire of brimstone. Say, and I feel that is the thing that has led so many people away from the beauty of the real truth, which is God is with us, and He is, well, I don't even want to put a pronoun on it, but God is love.
I can't help thinking of with judge is, this is when I hear the word
The truth is, so that's where, when we get away from the dogmas and all the different, necessary creeds or all the other traditions that have been come through over centuries through, and get to the actual underlying truths.
I think that's a problem with our society. They're too quick to look at, and I'll be honest, I'm quick to stand up for any denomination because I look for the good in each one.
Yeah.
I don't look for the bad. Like, I'm an ex-Mormon, or I wasn't baptized. I've done Catholicism. I've done the rounds. And when someone starts bagging, I'm like, that's a family member you're knocking there. That's how I feel. I go, they do some beautiful things. So I'm quick to point out, our society likes to spot out all the bad things of Christianity. Let's face it. And I feel like when someone's knocking my Catholic brother or my Mormon brother or whoever, I'm quick to stand up, not aggressively, but, oh, mate, I met some beautiful, they do things that they're very humble, they're very quiet. Like the Mormons are very quiet about what they do. Like, they do a lot of charity work, but they're very quiet about it. And this is what non-believers are quick, oh, well, oh, they pay this tithing and they do this and it. They give a lot to charity, but they don't say it. And a lot of them do. And didn't Jesus say, give with the right hand without the left hand?
Left, not your right hand. No.
So they're doing that anyway. It's and I think it's sad that we've got to fight against our beliefs, but I mean, we've all got the Lord in common. And being in this room with 30 plus men, not one asked what denomination was.
It reminds me of a Swedenborg statement that if love was in the first place, we would look at people of whatever religious affiliation they were at and say, I see that person loves the Lord and lives a good life. He is my brother or she is my sister. That's all we need to worry about.
Yeah.
That's liberating, isn't it?
It's a beautiful, that's not quite the words, but it's near enough.
Mm-hmm.
That we should be able to look at people across all these labeling lines and just say, look, it's a good person there who's doing their best with what they have or whatever. It's my brother. It's my sister.
And I use one of your sayings is because we were talking about when you were saved, we're saying having sort of testimonies, and I use your lines, and mate, I need saving every day. And they liked it. True, we all do. And I was like, that's got me out of trouble a few times. Because they had a microphone, we're sort of having testimonies, but it's really good because it's helping us to improve to be better husbands, better fathers. It's amazing. So I was the first one, the microphones, tell us something about your wife, and I won't say, I said some nice words, and hearing all these men saying beautiful things, and he's like out at Kilcoy where we are, really, and to see them collapse and go, oh, my wife, the day we met in 1968, I knew she was the one, and it was just really beautiful to hear. And he had a bunch of flowers, and he said, I got this bunch of flowers to give to the guy who I think needs it. So we all went around the table, 30 of us, and one bloke, he's having a bit of trouble at home, and he said, mate, take these home to your wife and have a good chat. You know what I mean? And it's improving us as men. It's amazing. And being in a room with men only, and Jane and I just had a recent disagreement about because we were gardening, and she's getting at me about, I'll move these branches and whatever. And then you get in there and the bloke's, I love her, but before I was coming, and it's just, but it's all in jest, you know what I mean? And I think we don't have enough of it. I don't really think, and there's a guy that comes, he's a Brazilian guy, and he sings beautiful. He did, I love your presence. And there wasn't a dry eye in the room. I love your presence. I love you, Jesus. And I recommend it for any man who feels like he's falling short of being a father or husband. And I'm so glad. So they're very secretive about, not secretive quite about their religious affiliations, but when you walk in and you hear the guy singing and you just go, yeah, I'm at home. I'm at home. Yeah.
That's good. Yeah, I think we can probably read the next section. Is anybody wishing to read this bit? I can read it. Okay. Works and deeds, though, does not mean works and deeds solely the way we look in outward form. It also includes their deeper nature. Everyone knows really that all our deeds and works come from our intention and thought. For if they did not come from there, they would be no more than motions like those of machines or robots. So a deed or work in its own right is simply an effect that derives its soul and life from our volition and thought. It follows then that the quality of the volition and thought that cause the deed or work determines the quality of the deed or work. If the thought and intent are good, then the deeds and works are good. But if the thought and intent are evil, then the deeds and works are evil, even though they may look alike in outward form. 1,000 people can behave alike, that is, can do the same thing, so much alike that in outward form one can hardly tell the difference. Yeah, each deed in its own right is unique because it comes from a different intent. Do you want me?
I think that's what I was. Yeah, I hadn't read that, so that's the intention. Is
Yes.
what I definitely feel is what we're being looked at, and this is where, like, even, and I don't want to sound judgmental, but like, you do have people giving, and I hear what you're saying about the Mormons, and I'm not negating that, but you hear people giving, but like, and from the outward sign, it can look like, oh, they're giving, but it could be they're also so fearful that they're paying to be able to pay to God to get into heaven, or or they, so there's so many different layers to what, so it's not just what we see. So that's comes back to this whole thing that we are not to judge, is because like, we don't know the intent
No,
of
we
what
don't.
it is.
We don't. Judge not that you be not.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I think that's the thing about like giving freely again, isn't it? Because if you again comes back to that thing, because if you don't feel that you've got it, whatever you're giving, and you don't have that within yourself, then it's going to be really difficult to sort of give that, because where are you pulling it from?
That's right.
And this is where you get burnt out, because when you're giving from duty and obligation,
yes.
or because you become like a machine,
Yes.
because you just get caught on the treadmill of production, and you just worn out because you're just on the go, because I have to do this, I have to do that, and I have to give here.
Yeah.
But yet the intent is you're just doing it not consciously. I think that's the other part of it, is being conscious of the
just an
intent.
automatic thing. I read this really good story. It was about a religious man set back in time, religious man that came to a township, and he was then going to brothels, and so other people in the township were judging him, or how can he be a religious person when he's going into these brothels? And then he ended up actually getting murdered, because they're like, you are,
Evil man.
yeah, an evil man. And then it came out afterwards that every amount, like everything that he earned, because he was out working, he was an old man at this stage, but was still working really, really hard. All his money he was spending to try and save these women. All these women came forward and said, he saved me and allowed me to leave that lifestyle and helped me to be able to get married and to be able to have a family and have a life. And it was multiple people. So people had been so nasty to him, and had been like, so, I mean, he ended up getting murdered, but he'd been shunned, he'd been shamed and everything, but he knew that if he said anything, that he wasn't going to actually be able to continue with his mission of being able to go in and to be able to help these women. So it was like just such an amazing sort of story.
So
I can't remember.
it is a true story.
So, yes, it was a true story. I need to try and look it up, because it's actually such a powerful story. And just that, we don't, people were talking badly about us, and, we probably do defend ourselves. We don't just allow people to think poorly and that we're the worst of the worst. So just how admirable, like that quality, even that aspect of it was, and just,
It is love.
Yes, and that everybody had thought so poorly of him all of that time.
Throughout history, I mean, that's how quick everyone's been to judge, and what's coming to mind there is like during the witch hunts time.
Yes.
Women, even if they helped someone with a herb or something, was suddenly, dragged in and, put the fire or done, you know, it's just incredible. And that's that whole control mechanisms that we've brought in with them. And that's why I get so caught up with the word judge, because it's actually been an incredibly controlling method of indoctrination throughout the centuries. It still is.
Absolutely, and the further you go back to some of those things through history and that, what humans beings just done. Just,
I mean, look at the Crusades. It's just disgusting. It was all.
But it's still happening now, you know, in parts of the world.
absolutely, absolutely.
And it can easily happen again if we don't demonstrate more.
Nowhere near as moving as yours. Remember one of our ministers, he's passed on himself now, Frank Rose. He was in Tucson, in Arizona. And he told a story, truth, that he and his wife had gone to a restaurant for a meal, and there was a lady in the next table, and she was already very overweight and couldn't help himself watching the amount of food being brought to her table. Of course, the judgment got going. Why didn't she pull herself in, and how can she eat food like that when she's already, you know, hardly managing to sit on one chair and all this kind of thing? Well, he must have mentioned it to somebody, because they said, well, the lady you're talking about, she lost her husband 6 months ago. She's just in total grief. She can't, she doesn't want to live or anything. She's just abandoned any sense of wanting to be in this world. So, you know, you can't just jump and judge her for what you see. You don't know the full background of her story. And that was, he told us that story once. We just don't know what's going on in somebody else's life, like the man.
But because we've been brought up in a society as well, you know, of having this good bad, you know, good bad, as you're saying, like through our schooling, through home, and you know, it's like it's really hard work to train our conscious mind to not judge, because we jump into it very quickly.
Exactly that. Just exactly that.
And sometimes I find the people with the piercings in their face, the tattoos all over them, they can be some of the most beautiful people. I remember one day in Wynnum, this lady had a fall, and my boys were probably about 5 or 6, and listening to my parents, tattooed people, tattooed, you know. And they saw this man, he leaped out of his car, no shoes on, just shorts on, covered in, this dude, he had wings. He was an angel. He just took control. He was so calming, and my boys are going, oh, he's covered in tattoos, and that's what I mean, boys. Like, that older generation will tell you people with tattoos are a lesser of people. And sometimes, I don't mean to be nasty, sometimes that can be true. Like when they have the teardrop ones here, they're really little around the necks. Sorry, I don't mean to judge, but I've had a few.
Be wary.
Yeah, be wary. But genuinely speaking, we were at the Black Butt Avocado Festival a few months ago, and the amount of pierced, tattooed people that were just so gorgeous. They were just so beautiful. It's like, I don't know, it's just sad in our society that, like we're saying, is immediately you got to sum someone up by the way they look. And you look at the animal world, I mean, they don't have to worry about that. They just go, oh, I need to survive, I need to live. They don't, I mean, they're wary of their predators, but sad that we got this survival mechanism. We're going to work out whether anyone is predators or not. And it's sad, but seeing my boys seeing that with that man was the best thing ever. And Jane's parents were the same about tattoos and stuff, aren't they? So, and
My mum, and yet when she was sick in the bank or whatever, and it was someone covered in tattoos that came and helped her and everything. Because, yeah, then the Lord's going to bring those people in to try and go,
Rewire.
that judgment,
Rewire.
is not, you've got that wrong.
And we had an example of this in Melbourne. There was this really fit guy, like short, big muscles, the tattoos, the mustache, that's the thing at the moment. And I just thought, so I won't say what I thought. And he's just showing it. And he goes, "Hey guys, how you going?" And he goes, "Which way are you going? You going to the airport bus?" I said, "Oh, no, we're going to..." "Oh, guys, you're better off going left down the next street and it's a bigger pathway and you'll have a smoother way." And I thought, you deal, Chris, And he goes, "So what do you think of Melbourne?" I said, "Yeah, cool." Personally, I didn't like it, but I said, "Yeah, cool, mate. Yeah. Like looking for a tree in Melbourne. Oh, a tree. Wow." But then you go to Adelaide and there's trees everywhere. It's just a difference. But anyway, this guy made me just realise, and I told my brother, I said, "Yeah, I got to," my brother said, "Don't you love that when you get that?" And it puts you in check and you go, just because the guy was fit and good looking and, showing off his muscles doesn't mean he's not a nice person. He was so cool. He was just like, and that just brings you back down to earth.
And how many times did that happen? We grab like a snippet of something, don't we? Look at the
Mm,
cover on the book and we know nothing about the inside of that story, like you were saying. We judge it.
But we also probably judge ourselves the harshest.
Oh, of course, yeah. I was gonna say that.
And that's the thing of learning to love the judge within you.
Yeah.
So then hopefully we can learn to not judge others. And that's the hardest challenge. And that comes back to that word shame, because I reacted when you said the word shame. I kind of think, shame is very internal,
Yes.
and it's often because you've judged yourself, as unworthy, and judged, for various reasons, and that's one of the hardest things to work through.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Just on that, when we are judging ourselves, we need to train ourselves. That was regretful. That was something I wish I hadn't done. Not I was. We've got to separate ourselves from what it is we're identifying. Otherwise, I was shameful. I was dreadful. No, that was dreadful. And that spills over to your kids again. You are a naughty boy. You cannot say that. You can say that wasn't the best thing to do, or
Yes.
define somebody. Don't even define yourself.
Yeah.
This is what I'm saying, Jennifer. Don't define yourself. I was horrible. No, that was horrible. Because then if you separate yourself up, you then can avoid the depths of shame and get into a sort of a wallowing frame of mind if you're not careful.
Absolutely.
You keep referring to me like it was me. Well, that was something that you acted on, but it isn't the full story about who you are.
No, and I like the word separate.
Yeah,
because separate, as you said, was the definition of judgment.
yeah.
So if we use the word separate, as instead of judge, to separate, that out. So make it, and that comes back to that concern.
Like back in my heavy
Separate
drinking
our
days,
essence from our behaviours.
Yes.
Essentially, isn't it?
Yeah.
the worst bit about my heavy drinking days was the shame on myself the next day, apart from everything. And yeah, it was, what did I say? What did I do? Oh, I'm a moron. And that was the worst part of drinking, I've got to say. What I mightn't have even said or did anything, but the whole, probably a week or two after, I'm like, wow. And that was probably the precursor to stopping, because just the shame for weeks after. I went to a friend's wedding in Adelaide recently and had a little bit too much than I should have, but I was dancing to songs I don't even like. And Jane keeps reminding me of it. And I'm like, oh, no, but it's a better shame than, saying things that you're not supposed to. And I was with good company. It was amazing company. I just let myself look. It was an amazing night. And I didn't really feel that much shame because I don't do it very well. I don't very rarely do it. And I could have been worse. I was a very happy. And saying about judgment, because she married an orthopedic surgeon. So there was all doctors there. And I was like, oh, no, I'm going to be on my best behaviour. I better watch my P's and Q's. No, that went out the door. Everyone, they're just humans. We were all humans. We're sitting at this table with all these medical professionals, and they're just the same as us.
I think, that's been fantastic. Our discussion that
Where
we've
did you
had
get to?
today.
Sorry. Please.
So, it's 22,
Yeah.
and we just have
Take,
read
for
the
example.
first paragraph.
Oh, yeah, take for
Yeah.
example.
Yeah. Take for
So
example.
really,
Take for example.
sort of from the top of page 22, I'd say. But
Is
yeah,
Darren still there, Grant? Is Darren
Darren.
still
Yeah,
there?
yes, we're here. We've loved being with you guys. 22, that's where we're up to next time. 100, was it 22? We'll go
Page
from there.
22.
Near the
Yeah.
top of the page, Darren.
Yeah, we probably could start from the top of the page because it says, for example. So yeah,
Take
Yeah.
for example.
yes.
In the middle, the connection was disconnected. I didn't realize when I come back, I found that there's no.
It happens, Juan. Don't worry about it.
Yeah,
It
We're going to
happens.
do the Lord's
Yeah.
Prayer again,
You're going to say a blessing for us, Darren?
or a blessing, or the Lord's Prayer. What do we want to do?
No, we did the Lord's Prayer.
Okay,
Oh, we
so a
have to do it.
blessing now. Yes. So Darren, if you could do a blessing.
Oh, dear Lord, we ask that your gentleness and your beauty and your love will flow into all that we think and all that we will. So, Lord, that we are guided by heaven's light and by heaven's heat to just be there and love each other and support each other as you would do. We ask this that you be glorified in every part of our life. Amen.
Amen.
Lovely. Thank you, Darren.
Thank you.
Amazing. Great to have you there, buddy.
Yeah.
It was nice to be able to still be there, yes.
Okay. I will
Thank you,
disconnect.
Brian.
Okay, thank
Yes,
you very
for
much.
all you do. Yes, thank you. Blessings. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Yes.
So am I, Chris. Drives me mad.
Yeah, my kids had to show me how to read with them on my Jane. But yeah, last Sunday, here we are